April 27th, 2011, 13 minutes past 5 in the afternoon. In a rented house in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a 21-year-old named Loryn Brown is on the phone with her mother. She cannot see the tornado. Almost no one in the Deep South ever does. It is wrapped in rain and hidden behind the trees, a mile and a half of wind moving through a green, crowded country that gives no one a clear look and no one much time. Her mother, 2 hours away, hears her daughter say she is scared, that she has never seen anything like this. Then the line goes dead and her mother knows. 6 University of Alabama students will die that day, and they are only a fraction of it. By nightfall, the toll across the Deep South will climb past 300. Almost everyone pictures tornado death as a plains story, flat land and a storm cellar and a funnel you can watch for 10 miles. But the killing has moved into a place with none of that, where the storms come at night, in the rain, over towns full of homes that cannot protect anyone. This is the story of how the American South became the deadliest tornado zone in the country, and why the sky over it is only growing more dangerous. To understand why the most dangerous place to be during a tornado is no longer where you imagine it, you have to go back to a picture almost everyone carries in their head. The picture is the open plain. It is flat farmland running to the horizon, a dark funnel standing against a green sky, a farmhouse with a storm cellar out back, and a family climbing down into it with minutes to spare. That picture has a name. We call it Tornado Alley, and for most of the last century it was more or less true. The wide corridor through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska is where warm Gulf air, dry desert air, and cold northern air have always collided over ground so flat and so empty that a person could watch the storm coming from 10 miles away and decide, calmly, what to do. That picture is comforting. It is also increasingly wrong. The tornadoes have not stopped forming on the plains, but the dying has moved. It has drifted east and south, off the open farmland and into a green, crowded, hilly country where almost none of the old protections exist. It has moved into the Deep South. Meteorologists have a name for that region too, and it is older than most people think. In 1971, the director of the National Severe Storms Forecast Center, a man named Alan Pearson, looked at where tornadoes were killing people and coined a second name for a second, deadlier alley. He called it Dixie Alley. For decades, that name stayed mostly inside the weather offices. Then, over one afternoon and evening in the spring of 2011, the Deep South showed the entire country exactly what Alan Pearson had been trying to warn them about. Here is the fact that reorders everything you think you know about tornadoes. Take a single tornado of a single strength and drop it on the open plains of Oklahoma. Then take that exact same tornado and drop it on rural Alabama. The Alabama tornado will, on average, kill far more people. The wind is identical. Everything around it is not. The first reason is the clock. Tornadoes in Dixie Alley are 2 to 3 times more likely to strike at night than tornadoes on the plains. And a tornado that comes in darkness is a different kind of predator. Studies of decades of data have found that a nighttime tornado is about 2.5 times more likely to kill you than one that arrives in daylight. The reason is brutally simple. People are asleep. They do not see the sky. They do not hear the sirens over the rain and the air conditioner. The warning goes out to a town that has already gone to bed. The second reason is the ground itself. On the plains, you can see a tornado coming, a black wall moving across open land. In the south, the land is forested and rolling, and the tornadoes are wrapped in rain, hidden inside the storm that carries them. People in Alabama and Mississippi will tell you the same thing again and again after a tornado passes. They never saw it. It was in the trees, and then it was in the house. The third reason is where people live. The Southeast has the highest concentration of manufactured housing, of mobile homes, anywhere in the country. And a mobile home is not a shelter. The research here is stark. Your chance of dying in a tornado is roughly 15 to 20 times higher in a mobile home than in a permanent, site-built house. About half of everyone killed by tornadoes in the United States in recent decades died in a mobile home. When a strong tornado finds a trailer park in the dark, in the trees, there's very little the people inside can do. There is a fourth factor, quieter than the others, and it lives in the calendar. The plains have a tornado season, a few weeks in late spring when the ingredients line up. The Deep South has something closer to a tornado year. It gets the spring peak, and then it gets a second season in the fall, and it can get violent tornadoes in the dead of winter in December and January when no one is thinking about severe weather at all. A threat that can arrive in any month is a threat that is easy to stop taking seriously, and complacency is its own kind of vulnerability. Put those things together, night and rain and thin walls and a season that never really ends, and you have a region that is a loaded gun. Then add the last factor. The South is not empty like the plains. It is densely and continuously settled, town after town, so a tornado of a given size passes over far more homes and far more people. Many of the region's most violent storms are what meteorologists call high precipitation supercells, storms that bury their own tornado inside a curtain of rain so that the funnel is invisible until the last seconds. The plains gave you distance and daylight and a cellar. Dixie Alley takes all three away, and then it hides the storm inside the rain. For years, this was something forecasters felt more than proved. Then the data caught up. In 2018, two atmospheric scientists, Victor Cancini and Harold Brooks, published a study in the journal NPJ Climate and Atmospheric Science with a plain title and an unsettling finding. They looked at tornadoes and at the atmospheric conditions that spawned tornadoes across the country from 1979 to 2017. Nationally, they found the total number of tornadoes each year had barely changed, but the map had. Where tornado activity was fading, it was fading in the core of the traditional alley, over parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and northeastern Colorado. And where it was growing to the east. They found significant increasing trends across Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky. The threat was not disappearing. It was migrating out of the wide-open country built in the American imagination for tornadoes and into the wooded, crowded mobile home country that is the worst possible place to receive it. One likely engine, the scientists suggested, is that drying air over the southern plains is slowly nudging the storm track eastward, toward the thick Gulf moisture of the deep south. It is worth being clear about what the study did and did not claim. It did not say the plains were now safe, and it did not say the South had suddenly been invented as tornado country. Alan Pearson had named Dixie Alley 4 decades earlier. What the numbers added was direction and weight. They showed a steady, measurable drift of the atmosphere's tornado-making machinery toward the east, sustained across nearly 40 years, in the same period that the region's mobile home population and its total population kept climbing. The hazard was rising in one place while the number of vulnerable people rose in the same place. Those two lines were moving toward each other. The maps were saying the danger was moving toward the people least able to survive it. 3 years before that study was published, the Deep South had already lived the proof. To understand what a fully loaded Dixie Alley can do, you have to go back to the 27th of April 2011. For days, the atmosphere over the eastern United States had been assembling something enormous. A vigorous disturbance had rolled out of the southern plains. Warm, humid air was streaming north off the Gulf of Mexico. Over Kentucky sat a powerful area of low pressure. Over Arkansas and Louisiana, a sharp trough tilted the wrong way, and cutting across it all, a river of fast wind at a steep angle that set the whole atmosphere spinning. Researchers would later describe the conditions that day as among the most conducive to violent tornadoes ever documented. The Storm Prediction Center saw it coming. A high risk is the rarest and most severe category the center issues, a designation reserved for only a handful of days in an entire year. And by early afternoon, much of Alabama was under one. The center issued what they call a particularly dangerous situation watch, warning in plain language of destructive tornadoes across the state and into Tennessee. The forecasters had done everything right. The problem was never the forecast. The problem was that the region had already been softened up. A first wave of storms had rolled through before dawn, an early round of embedded tornadoes and straight-line winds that knocked out power and weather radios across northern Alabama hours before the main event even began. Many of the people about to be hit hardest that afternoon had already lost the tools that were supposed to warn them. Their power was out, their radios were dead, and the sky over them was about to do something that had not been seen in a generation. The stage was set, and it was set in exactly the place that could least afford it. At 5 minutes past 3 in the afternoon, a tornado touched down in Marion County, in the rural northwest corner of Alabama. Within minutes, it is a monster. It grows to a quarter-mile wide, then wider, its winds climbing to 210 miles an hour, the very top of the scale, an EF5. It is moving toward the small town of Hackleburg, and nothing built by human hands is going to stop it. In Hackleburg, the tornado is not damaging homes. It is erasing them. It sweeps well-anchored houses clean off their foundations, leaving nothing but the bare slab and a smear of debris. It pulls poured concrete storm shelters out of the ground, the very structures people had built to survive exactly this. It tosses cars the length of 2 football fields. It scours the asphalt off the road and flings chunks of it into the fields. It debarks the trees, strips them down to pale, naked trunks, which is the signature of the strongest winds on Earth. When it is finished, roughly 3/4 of the town is simply gone. The tornado tears through a Wrangler jeans plant, and in the days after, people 40 miles away in Cortland will find blue jeans falling from the sky. Photographs from Hackleburg homes turn up across the state line in Tennessee. The tornado stays on the ground for nearly 2 hours and carves a path almost 102 miles long. It knocks out the transmission lines feeding the Browns Ferry nuclear plant and forces it into emergency shutdown. By the time it lifts, it has killed 71 people. It is the deadliest single tornado in Alabama history, and at that moment the deadliest in America in more than half a century. And it was only the beginning of the afternoon. At 43 minutes past 4, while Hackleburg was still being counted, a second supercell dropped a tornado in Greene County to the south. This one is going to do something almost no tornado ever does. It is going to walk straight through the middle of 2 cities, in daylight, in front of the cameras. The tornado grows to 1.5 miles wide, its winds reaching 190 miles an hour, and it aims itself directly at Tuscaloosa. Because the storm crosses 2 major metropolitan areas, cameras are everywhere. Television sky cams lock onto it. Storm chasers and news crews put it on the air in real time. Across Alabama, families watch on live television as a wedge of black cloud, more than a mile across, grinds into the southern edge of the city. There is a particular horror in that footage, in watching a tornado this size move through a place you know, past streets and stores you recognize, and understanding that people are inside it as you watch. It rips through the neighborhoods of Rosedale and Forest Lake and Alberta City, flattening apartment buildings, leveling block foundation homes, scattering a shopping district. It scores a direct hit on the county's own emergency management office and destroys it. Then, instead of dissipating, it holds together across 80 miles of ground and re-intensifies over the western suburbs of Birmingham, tearing through Pleasant Grove and McDonald Chapel and Pratt City, killing 20 more people there. Because it crossed 2 metropolitan areas in front of the lenses, it becomes one of the most filmed tornadoes in human history. It kills 64 people, injures more than 1,500, and causes some $2.4 billion in damage. The costliest tornado in the country's history until Joplin, Missouri, a month later. And somewhere inside that path, inside one ordinary rented house, is a young woman on the phone with her mother. Her name is Loryn Brown. She is 21, a student at the University of Alabama, and on that afternoon, she is in her rented house on Beverly Heights in Tuscaloosa. She calls her mother, Ashley Mims, who lives about 2 hours away. "Mama, can you pull up the weather on your phone?" she asks. "We're having a bad storm. What's going on?" Her mother, watching from a distance, tells her it will be all right. It is not all right. As the tornado closes on the house, Ashley Mims can hear the fear come into her daughter's voice. She said, "Mama, I am really scared. I have never seen anything like this before," Mims later remembered. And then, "We were on the phone until it cut off at 13 minutes past 5, and I knew she was gone." Loryn Brown was one of 6 University of Alabama students killed that day. Her mother has spent the years since carrying her forward the only way she can. "If you would have told me on April 26th that I would have faced what I faced on April 27th, she said, "I would have said, just shoot me. There's no way I will ever survive losing one of my children." Think about what that call really was. A young woman watching a storm she could not see the shape of, reaching for the one person who might tell her what to do, and a mother 2 hours away holding a phone and a weather map and no power on earth to change what was coming. That distance, that helplessness, is Dixie Alley in a single phone call. The tornado was in the rain and the trees. Nobody saw it clearly until it was already there. To the north, in the little community of Mount Hope, a television meteorologist named Gary Dobbs is doing his job as the Hackleburg tornado bears down. He is on the air, giving a live report, and he spots the tornado through his own front window. There is no time. The house comes apart around him and throws him about 40 feet from where he stood. The door of his storm shelter is torn away, but the people inside it live. Dobbs is badly hurt and hospitalized, and he survives. One more person who never got the distance the planes would have given him. Not everyone could be convinced the warning was real. In Hackleburg, as the EF5 approached, one man refused to take cover in a storm shelter. He was killed. His dog was found more than a mile away, hurt but alive. It is a small detail from a day full of them, and it says something the whole region has learned the hard way. A warning only saves you if you believe it and move. The Hackleburg tornado did not stop at Hackleburg. It ground on into the town of Phil Campbell and killed 21 people there. When you read the list of the dead from that one town, the names that stay with you are the youngest ones. Ricky Knox was 10 years old. Edgar Mojica was 9. A few miles on, in a place called Langtown, a 12-year-old girl named Aurelia Guzman was killed. One woman in Phil Campbell lost 4 members of her own family in a matter of minutes. A decade later, when a new network of gap-filling radars was installed across the region, she told a local station that, for the first time, she felt a little hope, that maybe the next tornado would be seen a little sooner. That is the whole story in one sentence. In Dixie Alley, hope is measured in whether the tornado can be seen sooner, because so often it cannot be seen at all. And the scale of that single day is hard to hold in the mind. 4 separate tornadoes reached EF5 strength, the very top of the scale, on the 27th of April alone, 2 in Alabama and 2 in Mississippi. More than 200 tornadoes touched down that day. Over the full multi-day event, the count climbed to roughly 360. By the end of that one afternoon and evening, 253 people were dead in Alabama, and somewhere between 316 and 324 across the Deep South. It remains the largest tornado outbreak in United States history, and it happened here, in the alley almost nobody names. When it was over, whole neighborhoods and whole small towns had ceased to exist. President Obama walked through Tuscaloosa 2 days later and said he had never seen devastation like it. And then came the slower disaster, the one that does not make the footage. Recovery in Dixie Alley falls hardest on the people who were most exposed in the first place, the renters, the mobile home families, the households with the least to rebuild with. A family that owned a site-built home with insurance could begin again. A family that had rented a trailer or owned one outright with no coverage often had nothing to begin again with. The storm did not just fall on the poorest and most exposed communities. It stayed on them in the form of a recovery that took years and never fully arrived. A decade after the storm, the affordable housing that Tuscaloosa lost had still not fully come back. Some of the people who were scattered that day never returned. This is the part the maps were trying to tell us. The 27th of April was not a freak, a piece of terrible luck that landed on Alabama and will not come again. It was a demonstration of what happens when a fully loaded storm meets the specific vulnerabilities of the Deep South. And every one of those vulnerabilities is still there. The mobile homes are still there. The trees are still there. The nighttime tornadoes are still there, and there are more of them. The warning technology has improved and it saves lives, but a warning cannot help a sleeping family in a trailer who has nowhere hardened to run. And the science says the storms are drifting further into this exact country, not away from it. The old picture, the flat plain and the cellar and the funnel you could see for 10 miles, was never wrong, exactly. It was just the last war. The tornado threat did not vanish from Oklahoma, but its center of gravity, measured in the only currency that matters, in human lives, has slid east into a region that has none of the plain's defenses and all of its own weaknesses. The most dangerous place in America to stand when the sky turns is no longer the wide open alley of the imagination. It is a green, crowded, sleeping country in the Deep South, and the same ingredients that filled the sky in 2011 gather over it every single spring. The question is not whether they will come together again. It is only where and how many people will be asleep in thin-walled homes when they do. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. These documentaries take real time to research and put together, and it means a great deal that you spent this time here. If this was worth it to you, consider liking the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing, so the next story finds its way to you. Until then, stay safe, keep an eye on the sky, and I'll see you in the next one.